Welcome everyone, this is Josh1. Welcome to a new video where here today I'm going to do something a little different. It's kind of an overview on the Warhammer world lore of Dwarves. The Dwarves are an ancient and proud race, although not as quite as old as the knife-eared bastards of the elves. In the distant past they ruled a great vast empire spanning the entire world-edge mountains, which they called Karak Ankor. And loosely translated, translates into the everlasting realm. Now, their empire fell to the invasions of orcs, skaven, goblins, and other malign races, and today remains of this once interconnected fortress of their interconnected fortress cities, English, have become isolated and scattered. And the dwarves themselves are vastly reduced due to all the wars and invasions that they've had to endure over the countless millennium. Now, the dwarf society has remained threatened pretty much throughout its entire uh, reign, through this entire conception. Basically, it has been threatened by total destruction, by a never-ending war against these same enemies. As well as defending their own besieged realms, the dwarves have often given their support to the other races of the Warhammer world. Their closest ally is the human realms known as the Empire. The dwarves are masters of the forge and of metalworking. They make use of many minerals and metals, including their famed grumriel. This is not found. This metal is actually not found in the Warhammer world. It actually falls to the world. They call it also is called star metal. Dwarves are short and powerful fighters. They are highly resistant to the effects of magic, including the corrupted aspects of chaos energy. But outside of their own unique runesmithing magic, dwarves have no ability to use any other types of magic in the Warhammer world. Now I'm going to go into the little bit of their society and social structure. Dwarves are organized into strongholds, each governed by a king. Each dwarf hold is a self-contained economy. Most are at the center of a network of smaller holds, which operate their own mines, farms, workshops, and trade exists within this network and with the outside world, of course. The kings of each stronghold are independent rulers, but they all swear allegiance to the Dwarven High King. Now, which means they rule their holds and maybe some surrounding holds, smaller holds. But if the High King says we need to march and to go kill these people, then they're supposed to go do that. Otherwise, they risk having the High King and other Dwarven strongholds come and take their belongings and such. Also, these strongholds are just give anybody that doesn't know the Warhammer world very well, or not, or is just finding this for the first time. These strongholds are massive fortresses, dwellings above ground and below ground, built basically into mountains. They are massive. They are connected by what's called the Dwarven Underway, which are just huge, running thousands of miles from the top of the World's Edge Mountains to the Southlands, far east as Britannia. They're huge, huge walkways. What's a good? Basically, think Grand Central Station times 300 in size. It's just they're huge. Entire armies can move through these underways in no time flat. The entire battles have been taken. They've got fortresses and gates for defensive. It's just a huge, massive undertaking that the dwarves have built over the millennia. They're great things. Excuse me. Okay, now each stronghold is home to several dwarven clans. Clans are made up of many families of dwarves, all of which usually share a common homeland. Often the clans have lived elsewhere, but their original homeland have been lost or destroyed. The ancestors of a clan are highly honored, and part of this honor involves singing their sagas and maintaining their tombs and relics of such as weapons, any armor, any trade tools, things of that nature. Social rankings, for the most part, in Dwarven societies based on clan. The lowest rankings are your disgraced clans, usually thieves, outcasts, maybe oathbreakers. People, a lot of dwarves are in debt. Next are clans that wander from hold to hold, and also cities, human cities, trading raw materials and finished goods for food and other goods that they cannot easily acquire. Good farmland is scarce in the mountains, so grain and fruit are mostly brought into the mountains by these said traders. Dwarves are very OP craftsmen, thus their works are in high demand throughout the realms. Well, most of the realms anyway. Next up are the respectable clans who dwell within the holds. These are your warriors, rangers, shopkeepers, things of that nature. The top-ranking clans are clans which engage in the most respected of dwarven trades, such as gold working, metal, weapon smithing, rune smithing, and engineering. The ruling class, of course, is the royal class, which include the kings and queens. The dwarves like to keep their titles simple, with the exception of the kings and his heirs. They simply call most of their nobles thanes. And next up, we're going to go over some of the other dwarven society and social stuff. The most important principles of dwarven society can often be summarized as age, wealth, skill, and honor. The more of these you have, the higher you are in dwarven society. As a result, dwarves never cut or trim their beards. The length of the beard indicates age and thus wisdom. They also enjoy hoarding hard-earned treasure. Dwarves love their gold almost as much as dragons. Maybe more than dragons. When a dwarf dies, his wealth goes to his family and so passes down through the generations. Often a dwarf will measure his wealth by how far off the ground they are when they sit on their treasure, all Scrooge McDuck style. The other important part of dwarven culture is their rigid and unyielding sense of honor, which is centered around the bond or promise. A promise does not die with an oath maker, nor does treachery die with an oath breaker. A dwarf will be bound to an unfulfilled promise made by an ancestor, and will commit themselves to their fullest to keeping said promise. Likewise, they look to the descendants of oathbreakers for recompense. Serious breaches of faith against the dwarves are recorded in a tome called the Great Book of Grudges, and constitute something of a chronicle of dwarven history. That's right, one of the most important part of dwarven society is how many people have fucked them over. The dwarven language is called Halakazlid. I just butchered that. Hazalid, and it is a ancient language that has remained mostly unchanged over thousands of years, and is kept a secret language. They do not speak it in the company of other races. Dwarves are mighty warriors. They are battle-hardened from all the invasions and besiegings of their realms throughout the millennium. The dwarven craftsmanship and engineering skills give their armies some of the most advanced technology in the Warhammer world, including mithril armor, handguns, cannons. They even have gyrocopters and very powerful war machines. Dwarves for warfare tend to prefer close combat, because they are more than a match for most enemies in close combat. Ranging from humans, Skaven, even up to ogres and giants and everything else. In close combat, dwarves are pretty much the end-all be-all of melee. Dwarves are not suited very much for riding beasts or horses, so you won't see many of them doing that. Occasionally, dwarves are mounted on dwarf thrones, if they are sufficient rank and power. Usually the king or the high king will have that honor. And lastly, of course, I'd like to go just a little bit how they view their history. Dwarven histories, since they are a ancient race, they have a very long history, and they tend to divide their history into a number of distinct periods. Where I can, which is only a couple instances, I'll be using the Human Imperial Calendar, or IC, just to give you some dates where I can. Time of the Ancestor Gods. This is about, I believe, 7,000 to 8,000 years before, let's say, Sigmar. Led by Gungren, Grimnir, and Valea, the dwarves migrate northward, slowly founding the first strongholds and colonizing the old world's mountains, and reaching as far north as the wastelands of Norsica, which is pretty neat. Next, of course, is the coming of chaos. This is when the Great Chaos War, when the demons first appeared, and the chaos gates in the north and south basically spilled open, and the world went to hell for a very long time. Throughout this, the Gungi and Grimnir and Valea protected the dwarves against the chaos magic and slew many, many demons. Just a huge amount of demons, and just a huge war going on all over their lands. This, of course, didn't last forever, as we all know. The elves made their little magic funnel and funneled all the magic out of chaos, out of the world, so the chaos demons couldn't really manifest anymore, so they slowly deteriorated over time. And that war ended. Next, the age is called the Golden Age, which is the founding of the Dwarven Empire as a whole, and also the establishment of Everpeak as the dwarf capital. Which is also known as Karaz and Karak. Also during this time, the dwarves met those knife-eared, backstabbing, oath-breaking elves for the first time and established trade with them. But of course, like all good things, did come to an end. Next we have the age of the War of Vengeance, when said elves' treachery leads to a long war which devastates both races. And I do mean both races, and I mean devastates. Neither race fully recovers from these wars. The dwarves inherit the old world when the elves leave, due to elven things, which I'll probably cover in another video. But their power is severely weakened due to this war. Next is the Time of Woes, and that happens about, I want to say, 25 to 2700, minus 25 to 2700 IC. This is a time of darkness. Volcanic activity shatters the Dwarven Empire. I mean, just lays waste to many holds and much of the underway. This activity also precedes a massive migration of the greenskins. There's your orcs and your goblins and your night goblins, things of that nature, which besiege the dwarven holds. Next is the time they call the Goblin Wars, which is just an unrelenting war between the dwarfs and said greenskin races. Now after that, it eventually settles down. They lose a lot of stuff, they regain stuff, but it kind of settles down, and it's just a lot of besieging. Next is the Silver Age, which they call an age of reconquest, aided by the human realms, which is where they first meet Sigmar Heldenhammer and his united human tribes. They beat back the greenskins, and several strongholds are retaken by the dwarves. This is also the time when the famous battle at Blackfire Pass occurs, which is Imperial Calendar -1. Next, you have the Chaos Wars, which men call the Great War Against Chaos, which is a series of campaigns and chaos incursions into the Empire and Dwarven held lands, lasting from about 2301 to 2304 of the Imperial calendar, which is about 250 years before the current Warhammer time. And that is all I wanted to say today about the dwarves. I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave a like if you did in the bottom. Comment, criticisms. All of it is welcome. Thank you very much for listening, and have a wonderful day.